Thank you for having us. It's just a delight to be here. And Michelle, as Roz said, you took your father, Thornton, on a 2-week journey to 4 states to visit family. You rented a 30-foot RV, something you'd never driven before, and brought your son, who's in college, to help you co-produce this documentary about the trip and to help make your dad as comfortable as possible. So your dad was first diagnosed with Alzheimer's in December of 2013, and at this point, when you're ready to take off, his short-term memory isn't great, he's not eating well, and he can get restless and agitated. So it's not an easy feat to contemplate, let alone to carry it off. This was just in March, and as you told me, it was a life-changing trip for all 3 of you. You first got the idea in late December after a cousin your father loved dearly passed away. So what was it that made you know you had to take this journey with your dad?
Well, thanks, Elaine. There were so many things that really spoke to my heart when I heard my dad and these moments of despondency where he was feeling like he was questioning his life and questioning his mortality, questioning what was going on inside of his heart and in his mind especially. He was finding himself waking up to this confusion every day. And what I found when I listened to him over the phone, because I actually am the long-distance caregiver, and I heard him asking for help, for some way of getting out, getting away, getting some clarity in his life. And so I said to him, jokingly, Dad, let's go and take a road trip, because my dad has taught me to be the fearless driver. He was the one that took us around, and I knew Spirit had opened me up. It's been a part of my journey. I felt like this was just what was leading me to this point, and I knew that we would be taking this journey together, and I didn't know how it was going to look. It was the mystery of it all, but I said, Dad, I'm going to rent an RV, because remember I told you about that RV I was going to buy one day in life, and we're going to drive around, and he's like, oh, okay. And we got to talking about this a little bit, but I also said I'm going to step back and not give too much information. And I instead called my son, who is in college, and I said, son, would you take 3 months with me as a part of your internship, because he was embarking on an internship program, and come and do a documentary with your papa and I on the road, so we can remind the mind of the love that's in his heart.
And you had told me yesterday when we talked that there are really 2 things that drive your dad, and one was love of family. This really meant a tremendous amount to him, and love of nature. And so that was a piece of this trip, is to remind him of who he is.
Truly is, exactly. And so, yes, my dad is also one that loves to, even though he's going through this confusion, the mental battle, he's going through the mental battle. He is physically adept and loves to get out and walk. And so I knew that would be a way for him to get out and outside of this environment that he was in, this place that he was in his mind, the hopelessness he was feeling. And I knew that would open him back up to what, again, is what drives him, the notion of going out into nature and also reconnecting with loved ones that he hadn't seen in a long time. And I just started to believe, also how in the importance of celebrating his life while he's with us, which is what is also part of my work. I believe that it's really so important to celebrate one's lives while we're here, as opposed to always celebrating after someone has transitioned.
Now, after somebody takes a big trip and you're looking back on it and says, oh, it sounds like such a sweet, wonderful thing to do, I don't want to minimize the challenges here, right? So your dad's long-term memory is very good, but his short-term memory is not. He gets agitated at night. Some sundowners, exactly. And most of your friends and relatives predicted that this trip would end very quickly. You know, they thought maybe you'd start out and 2 hours later you'd be home again.
I questioned it at times too.
So in fact, the night you took off from your parents' house in Cleveland, that didn't start well. You were exhausted from the stress of getting ready. It was dark, a storm was coming. It was probably fair to say you were pretty scared, but somehow you were able to face down that fear. What happened?
Oh, yes, it was so many variables. And again, one of the things that I had to tell myself was, Michelle, you're stepping into the unknown. And I actually told my son this as well. I said, with this journey, it's going to be so much of the mystery, because we don't know what it's going to end up being like. We could end up coming home, you know, after getting on the highway in 5 minutes, and Papa's like, let's go back to the house. Or we could just continue on and trust that this is God's will. And I always would say to myself also, this is God's will at will, Michelle. And it was truly that. And I had this moment as I was getting on the road where there were these other, I mean, like you said, all the things that I could only imagine would happen as I'm getting on the road. It'd be dark, it's raining, it's foggy, I'm getting on a turnpike, and I'm driving a 30-foot RV that I've never driven before. It is a Cruise America line that I had rented, and my dad is sitting there as the co-pilot, I called him, and my son is in the back seat at the table, and his nerves, he tells me, are on fire. And I said, you know what? And there was something that triggered it. There was somebody, I was driving a little slow, and this car behind us is like honking as I'm getting on the freeway, taking my time. And these guys are like, ah! And I said, you know what, Spirit, thank you. That was the way that you needed to remind me to face the fear, to face it with love, that I can trust this place of the unknown. And I look over at my dad and I realize that he's taking me into his journey. This is not me taking him into a journey. He's taking me into his journey. He's saying, this is my world every day. So you come in here and you're gonna see that it's a place that you can also feel lost at times. You don't know where you're going, but you gotta trust it. And he didn't have to say it. I just felt that connection with his soul, like our souls came here to do this work together, and it was beautiful.
And on that note, that sense of being lost and going into the unknown turned out to be a big theme for you. And on your website, you have this 3-minute clip of your dad talking about a story from his childhood. So he grew up in the Kentucky mountains, and one day he got lost as a kid. You want to tell that story?
Yeah, this is one that my dad is a great storyteller, and that's one of the things that he's been able to hold on to. His long-term memory keeps him, telling those stories, and he repeats them over and over. So this one was about him going as a young boy into the mountains of Kentucky and just getting lost, and he was disoriented. And he said, but I realized that I was okay, that I could find my way back home at some point. And so with that in mind, it became the symbolism for me with this journey, because it was about us going out into this terrain, this place, these various places, and exploring and being adventurous and saying, you know what? I'm going to step out on faith, and I know that I'm going to get lost along the way and not know exactly. It seems to be dark, but in that darkness we're going to find the light. And the light came through in the form of love. It guided us. It guided us back home. That's how I kind of see it. And that's what guided him back home. When he was little, he thought, oh my goodness, my mom was waiting for me, and they didn't even know where I was at, but I was in those mountains lost.
So you made the RV very homey. You had a queen-size bed for your dad. You put art on the walls that he had made in the adult day center where he goes. And this kind of attention to detail, to making your dad feel at home, turned out to be critically important to the success of this trip. Why is that?
Absolutely. Of course, again, family was quite fearful that my dad would not be able to adjust, to adapt to the situation, because of course he's in that stage where he knows enough to know something's, you know, shifting, but he's not, he wasn't feeling like every day was different, every moment was different, let me just say. And I knew that even packing clothes was going to be a challenge for him, because as I was packing his clothes, he was unpacking his clothes. And so I knew I had to really work with where he was at, and so every little bit counted, making sure that he was going to be comfortable and in a place of familiarity, because I knew family would say, oh, you can come stay with us, and you know, and I even had family who said, well, why don't you just rent a car and stop at hotels? I said, no, he needs to have something that's going to be familiar, like home. And so I designed it so that he would wake up in the morning, and I had even a few pictures of family around and different things, art, and I packed the refrigerator. My family was blown away by how I packed the refrigerator with food and the cabinets. I had so much food that it was like a month or two worth of food, that in case it rained or snowed and we were stuck, I said, we'll be good. We just pull off to the side and we'll be fine. So my dad actually felt, it took though actually 3 nights, we did get pulled in by family members, 3 nights in a row where we had to stay with the family members, and those were the most challenging of times. My dad, as a matter of fact, had one of his worst sundowner moments the first night at a family member's home, and I was not in the room with him. We tried to get him comfortable, and he kept looking at me like, we're getting home, right? We're about to go home. I gotta go back to Jackie, my mom, and I gotta work tomorrow at Adult Day Center, and I gotta go to bed. And I said, well, you're gonna stay here with our cousins, and oh no, Michelle, no, we gotta get back on the road. I said, well, Dad, you know, it's late, you know, you want me to be safe on the road, can we just drive back in the morning? Well, I thought he was okay, and actually at 4 in the morning, I hear this noise, and I go upstairs, and my dad is on his way out the door. Oh. And I'm like, Dad, what's going on? And he's, are you okay? I'm not trying to hurt nobody, Michelle, it's okay. And he just got really anxious and agitated, and I had to calm him, and it was really hard. And actually, I didn't sleep that night. I had to keep one eye open and one eye closed, and at that point, I was thinking, oh my goodness, I'm driving this RV, and I'm going to be so tired. How am I going to do this? But I was blessed by an angel who's here right now, and I'll share more about that later.
So it turned out to be that the secret to helping manage some of your dad's symptoms was having this home environment in the RV.
And with my son and my son, who was awesome, he's 20, and he worked very well with my dad, his papa, and we both understood the importance of consistency at that point. We were very clear, let's make sure Dad eats well, he takes his medicine on time, and when we were at family members' homes, when he goes like this, it's time to go home. And I realized at some point, home didn't have to be back in Cleveland. Home was the RV. And that was so powerful, because as a matter of fact, when we would go into that RV, my dad, we would sit there for a minute, my son might play a game of cards or something with him, and then he would go to that back room as if this is my room, shut the curtain, and go to bed. And he became very comfortable. And part of it was, he also didn't like, my dad is old school, he didn't like being doted on. And he loves his family, and he wanted to see them, but he didn't want everybody to be, doting on him. He wanted to go back to the place where he could be productive. We created a structure, a setup where he actually helped with the cleaning, he helped with the cooking, he helped with, he helped us with the sewage part. I didn't, with my son, who he became the poop master, we called him. And he was, and he had to do all the, he had to keep flushing the RV and everything. And my dad would hold the flashlight and make sure that we, if it was dark, that we were, he just liked to be, he wanted to be helpful. And so I knew that that would make him feel at home. And that RV became amazing. I was so grateful that I trusted that vision.
And Michelle has a beautiful slideshow that we're going to show you in a minute. Your son is in college, as we've said, and he took time away from class to do this internship with you.
Yes.
It was a professional endeavor, co-producing the documentary you're working on, but also, you know, really getting that family intergenerational experience. In what way would you say this journey has changed him? Not just during the journey, but in a sustainable way.
Oh, in many ways, and as a matter of fact, I spoke with him after we talked yesterday, but one of the things that he quickly came back and said, we had some rough moments, don't get it twisted here, we had some really challenging moments as mother-son co-producers, and I had to keep reminding him to take off the hat of the son and be my professional videographer, co-producer, because at times he's like, oh, Mom, oh, you know, because I'm sitting here trying to do various things, drive and cook and clean and take care of Pawpaw, and I needed him to back me up. So he said, Mom, I learned so much about me. I learned how to be patient. He said, I learned empathy with Pawpaw, because he had not spent this kind of time with his Pawpaw. And he learned how to look through his Pawpaw's eyes and see what he was going through. And he really, really was so awesome with that. And he learned how, he said, I even learned some work ethic. He admitted it yesterday. He said it's helped me a lot with things in school these days. And so I'm like, oh, well, there was something to be said about me what he thought was fussing. He learned that it was also about his own growth as a person who's going into the business of media and things like that, where he's going to be working, collaborating with other people. And he got it, I think.
Do you want to show your slideshow now?
Sure.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.